Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. Before we begin, if you want more Star Wars content over on my gaming channel X2, we put out a new video all about a sort of Nintendo DS version of Star Wars Squadrons, which you may enjoy. Today, however, I want to tackle a fairly simple lore question, but one that has a lot of broad implications. That being, why didn't the Republic, the Kaminoans, or the Jedi themselves make Force-sensitive or Jedi clones? Now, obviously, we do have some examples of Force-sensitive clones in Star Wars. If you're a book reader, the most famous one is probably Jorah Sabayoth. If you like video games, there is, of course, the whole Star Killer fiasco. The Star Wars sequel trilogy has some stuff with Palpatine creating clone bodies, which his spirit inherits, whatever's also going on with Snoke. But these examples, especially the first two, serve more as exceptions and also illustrate some of the major difficulties when it comes to making Force-sensitive clones. And I mean, there has to be some major issue, because if you think about it, a clone army made up of Force-sensitive clones would probably be unstoppable. Alright, so the very short answer for why were Jedi clones not made is that generally the Force seemed to somehow interfere with the cloning process. However, I think that's obvious, and the more interesting question is why? Well, on a sort of philosophical level, if you're talking about Star Wars, there's the idea of the living Force and the cosmic Force, with the cosmic Force generally guiding the universe. The cosmic Force is somehow said to have a will of its own, and it seems like Force-powerful beings may actually be tools for some greater plan, so it's very possible that the Force intervenes to stop its will from being subverted by those who have been created through artificial means. We do actually see something similar, the Force pushing back against the actions of living beings, arguably with the birth of Anakin Skywalker after Force experimentation by Plagueis and Palpatine. So that's one way to look at it and one possible option, but there are others. The Thrawn trilogy heavily deals with the idea of Force-sensitive clones because one of the main antagonists, Jorah Sabayoth, is a clone of the former Jedi Master, Jorah Sabayoth. And what's more, he's insane. It seems like, according to the Thrawn trilogy, that where successful Force-sensitive clones are created, that they are prone to extreme mental instability, and not only that, are not typically viable. We get a little quote from Princess Leia about this in The Last Command. She says the following: "It's the Force," she told him. "It was so obvious, so utterly obvious, and yet she'd missed it completely. Don't you see? When you make an exact duplicate of a sentient being, there's a natural resonance or something set up through the Force between that duplicate and the original. That's what warps the mind of a clone that's been grown too fast." And although she is talking there about ordinary clones and how the Force touches all beings, presumably the effect is even greater for those who are Force-sensitive. Interestingly, the clones created in the Thrawn trilogy are through the Sparti process, which is actually completely different than the process used by the Kaminoans. Nonetheless, the Kaminoans too believed that Force-sensitives could not be reliably or safely cloned due to some strange interaction with the Force. And I mean, that makes sense. We do see some of the difficulties associated with both the Kaminoan process and the earlier mentioned Sparti process in The Force Unleashed 2 with the Star Killer clones. I think biologically too, there's also the question of whether copying someone's DNA also copies their midichlorians and the other aspects that make someone powerful in the Force. That being said, of course, there are exceptions, as I mentioned. There's the Galen Merrick clone or the Luke clone, but while these are successes to varying degrees, they're successes on a small scale, and they all take a lot of time and a lot of trial and error to work. I also believe that if these processes were scaled up in an attempt to make a Force-sensitive army, that the difficulties would actually increase by an order of magnitude to the point of impossibility. Or, if not impossibility, at least futility. This is because of a concept that Darth Bane talks about in his trilogy of novels, and that's the idea that the Force is not an endless supply of power. Now, arguably, we do see exceptions to this in, for example, the Jedi Knight series of games, but Bane believes that the Sith Order has allowed themselves to become less powerful by spreading out the dark side among hundreds or thousands of Sith instead of having it be concentrated in one or two individuals. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly right, but I do wonder if the Force is less like a big truck and more like a series of tubes, in that it only has room to empower so many, especially when all of the recipients of those powers are based on the same sort of genetic sequence. So sort of to summarize, I think there are several reasons why the cloning of Force-sensitive beings was very difficult, but it was. That's the key point. I think most of the reasons can be tied either to the metaphysical nature of the Force itself, how the Force interacts with the cloning procedure, or perhaps just the efficacy of cloning those with increasing madness and perhaps diminishing returns in Force powers. But that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.